All right, welcome back to the Pursuit of Progress, where we explore real estate, self improvement, and how to get better every single day. I'm Ben, and as always, I'm joined by my co host Adam. Today, we're going to be talking about the 8 things that I recently quit that have completely changed my life, from struggling financially and feeling stuck to building a 7 figure net worth and owning real estate across multiple states. If you feel like you're spinning your wheels, working hard, but not seeing real progress, this episode is for you. Let's break down the keys holding you back and what to do instead. Adam, welcome back. How have you been?
What's up? What's up? What's up? Good to see you, man. Yeah, I'm excited to see what you put together for us on this one. And I'm sure I can relate on a few of these, if not most. And hopefully our audience will as well and get a little bit of motivation as well as just some practical, maybe tips to improve in some of these. So let's just kind of jump right in, Ben. So, what's the first of these that was, and I'm assuming these aren't in any particular order.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
These are the 8 things that I quit over the last year, couple of years, some of it more recently, even the last couple of months, that it kind of just helped propel me forward, move forward, grow as a person, a leader. And the first one is quit being afraid to fail. 2018 was one of the most difficult years of my life. I had just transitioned from a job that was salary based into a role that was 100% commission. And so that was a really, really big jump for me. I had 2 kids. I was married at the time. And then shortly after that, my wife and I went through divorce, which was not planned. And all of a sudden, I had 2 kids. I was the sole provider. I had my dogs, 2 cats. And then I had this new job where I was 100% commission. And I had to stop being afraid to fail. And so, had I not done that, I would not have been able to kind of step into that job in the first place. But failure is not, and this is one of the things that I learned. Failure is not the opposite of success, which is a lot of people what a lot of people think. It's part of the path to success. And so I read recently that failure and success are on the same path. One just has a earlier exit, and I was like, wow, that's so true. You can only fail if you quit or you give up. And I chose to keep going. But the reason that was so difficult is because in 2008, I was also a loan officer, and it was just incredibly difficult. And I got such a terrible experience for that job and that role that I told myself I would never go back. At the time, the market was incredibly difficult. I was right out of college, but I didn't have the skills necessary to succeed. And so I had put that label on myself that I was never going to do this thing or have a commission based job or have an entrepreneurial type job. And I lived with that label for a very long time. And so learning to take that label off and understanding that the only failure is not trying. Even if you try and fail, that's okay. That's part of success. In order to be successful, you have to fail.
That's probably the biggest attribute of very, very successful people is they just have a totally different understanding and perspective when it comes to failure and see it as an opportunity and just again getting one step closer as opposed to this thing that you make out in your head to being so much bigger than it actually is. A lot of times it's not even ourselves. We're worried about just how it's going to make us look in other people's minds.
Yeah.
Like just getting to the point where you can just not give. And you know what about that? I mean, it just changes everything. So yeah, just quit being afraid to fail. That's a huge, great lesson to keep as number one to kick us off.
Yeah, and it's difficult because the reason it was so hard for me is because we are taught through our education system, our culture, that failure is a bad thing. You failed this test, you failed this class. But some of the most successful people are the ones that failed the most classes or the most tests or have failed the most businesses. So that's been a really, really powerful lesson for me. This one, I would say, this next one has been almost equally as powerful, and that was quitting alcohol. To me, it was a silent killer. And the reason this was so challenging for me is, growing up, I was not someone who drank in high school. I never drank. I never did any type of substances or drugs. I was very, clean lace with a lot of that stuff. And then in college, I started to drink and party a little bit. And then entering the professional world, all of a sudden, I was in a workplace in an environment where drinking is very common. Happy hours, social events, even in some cases, drinking at the office. There was always beer in the fridge. And so I kind of just developed this habit where alcohol was part of my daily life. I'm not saying that I was getting hammered every day, but it was like, I might have a drink at lunch and then come home and have two or three drinks. And deep down, I knew that it was holding me back. And then there were times that I wanted to quit, and I even tried to quit because I knew that in order for me to become the person that I'm called to be, alcohol is not part of that because it's just going to hold me back. But it didn't happen. I wasn't able to let it go until my mother's passing in 2021. She was on vacation in Cozumel after COVID and ended up drowning while she was on vacation. And I made a promise to her after she passed. She was out on the medical table. And at this point, she had already died, and I just promised to her. I made several promises to her, and one of those promises is that I would never drink alcohol again. And the reason for that is because she wasn't a drinker. She didn't believe in it. She was always of sober mind, body, and spirit, and I wanted to do that as a way to honor her. And looking back, I feel that alcohol had a certain power or control over me that I wasn't even aware of. And now that it's no longer part of my life, I feel so much more powerful knowing that I have given this up and I have conquered this vice. And so we all have different vices, every single one of us. For me, it was alcohol. For the next person, it could be marijuana. It could be porn. It could be what it is. It's something that's holding you back from the person that you're called to be. And it's something that all of us know. We have those things that we know that we do that, this probably isn't in my best self-interest, or I shouldn't do this, but I'm accustomed to it. It's part of my habit. So that would be my suggestion. Identify what those things are in your life and work on letting those go.
Wow, that was very, very genuine, great little response there, man. Thanks. I don't have too much to add to that one other than, if you guys also, if you can't completely quit something, it's also okay to, in my opinion, at least, to, like, I'm not really a big drinker anymore either, but, on special occasions, a couple times a year, let loose and have fun. So, you can kind of reward yourself in certain cases too, if it's, maybe a little bit different of a scenario like what I have.
I think that's important too. My personality type is I've always been like all in or all out,
Yeah.
and that's just kind of how I am. So I know there are other people out there like me. If you're someone like that, it's probably better to just not dabble. But if you do have the discipline and you can allow something not to take control over you, then I think that's fine as long as it's not holding you back and you're able to be responsible. Number three, the third thing I quit is I quit chasing and I learned how to start attracting. Chasing in my mind versus pursuing or attracting are very, very different. Chasing to me is based from desperation, from burnout, from feeling one step behind. Pursuit is very different than chasing. It's focused, it's intentional, it's strategic. You have a plan. When I shifted my energy to becoming the right person, it's interesting how the right opportunities and the right people found me. And learning how to pursue, learning how to attract consistently positive things were constantly coming in my life. And I think the reason that I was chasing is because I had these desires and these things that I wanted to accomplish, but I was going about them the wrong way. And you when you don't get that thing that you want, it really does come from a place of desperation. I had met up with a friend recently, and we had coffee last week together, and he mentioned how a friend of his who was in the mortgage business had called him and said, "Hey man, I'm having a really difficult time. I'm having to go get a second job. I just can't make ends meet. Any friends or family or referrals, like, can you please send those my way?" Totally coming from a place of desperation. Who wants to work with a person that's desperate, or have a person in your life that's desperate? It's very unattractive. And so learning that, being more aware of that, and then ultimately focusing on who I am, my skills, my qualities, my characteristics, and learning how to build out some of those positive habits so I could attract better things into my life. It's been very, very powerful.
Yes, I can't add anything. Anything that was perfect, man. I think this is another one that takes a little bit more intentionality than others. Just being very aware of what it is that you're trying to pursue or the goals that you have, and just having them be specific and in some way measurable. So that way, when you do have that focus, that intention, that strategy, you're guiding the ship in the right direction, and it's not just some very loose thing like, I want to make more money. You need to have a little bit more specifics on how you're going to do that in order to have that,
Mm.
I think, level of attraction versus chasing it.
Yeah, and it'll shift your foundation. And what we talked about last week with the reticular activating system, it gives you the ability to attract people, opportunities, and create an entire existence, an entirely different life for yourself. Sometimes I think about my life now and where I was 5 years ago and where I was 10 years ago, and I didn't even know how miserable I was and how unhappy I was. I'm a very positive person. So if you would have asked me back then, I would have said, I'm so blessed and I'm so thankful. And I was. But once you grow out of who you were into someone else and who you're called to be, you can realize that, that was I was walking and living a life that I was not intended for.
So let's jump to number 4.
Yeah, number 4, and this is I love talking about this one because you know me, I love talking about personal finance and money. But number 4 is I quit living paycheck to paycheck. Growing up, we all have things that get passed down to us. My dad was an extravagant spender, and my mom was the exact opposite. And when I was younger, I really placed value on consumption and wanting the nicest things and having the nicest things, even if I wasn't able to really even value what those things were. Having the nicest pair of sunglasses just so I could say that, but not actually like, how are these benefiting me? Like, are these really like, do I need a $400 pair of sunglasses? One thing that had a really big influence on me is, as some of you may know, my dad committed suicide when I was a teenager. And in his suicide note, one of the things that he wrote was that he was financially overwhelmed because of the poor financial decisions that he had made. And he was someone who had a very high income. So, despite his high income, he was still living paycheck to paycheck because of the poor decisions that he made. So, when I started living that way earlier in my career, I would just reflect back to that and what he shared in that letter before he took his life. And I ended up making a promise to myself that I was not going to live like that. Because when you live like that, you are living from a place of bondage and chains are around you and you're not capable of being creative. You can't become who you're called to be. If I'm living paycheck to paycheck, essentially what that means is that you are earning money today for money that you spent 6 months ago or a year ago. You're playing life from behind. And if you're playing from behind, it means that you're living from a place of demand. You can't live from a place of demand and be creative and have these great ideas and pursue your goals. Because again, going from last week, your reticular activating system is focused on today. I have to get this bill paid today. I have to get caught up on the mortgage. I have to pay this credit card debt down. And when you live like that, it's impossible to be financially free. It's impossible to become who you're called to be. So now, what I do now is the first thing that I do is I pay myself first. I think of everything in long term. What actions am I taking? The purchase today or the actions I'm taking today, how is that going to impact me 10 years from now? And that's ultimately how I decide if I'm going to make this financial decision or not. If this thing or this decision is going to put me in a better position financially 10 years from now, then I will do it or I will consider it. If it's not, if it's going to take money out of my pocket, create more demand, more financial stress, then I'm not going to do it. So I learned how to control my money instead of allowing my money control me. And the thing that I also learned from this is that when you're not in control of your money, and we've all been there, right? I mean, every single person has been there because a lot of this stuff you have to learn. But when you're not in control of your money, it's not just a money thing. Does it impact your family? Does it impact the relationship you have with your husband or wife or your partner or your spouse? Does it impact your friends? Does it impact your dreams? And the answer is yes. When you're not in control of your money, it spills over into every other area of your life. And so I've always talked about how important this is, but once I got in control, my life, once I got in control of my money, I feel so much in so much more control in every other area of my life.
And the other area you didn't say is time, just being able to have an abundance of time as opposed to not having enough time. You think about, just as an example, maybe buying a new car when you have yours paid off, but you're like, you know what, I really want this new car. And then all of a sudden you've got this new $600 a month payment.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden you got two options here. You either got to find a way to make more money with the same amount of time you have, or you're going to have to get a second job or work an additional 2 or 3 hours a day or a week to help pay for that extra amount of cost that you have. Otherwise, you're going to be going in the wrong direction. So, that again goes back to just time. And when you can kind of relate time to whatever it is that you're looking at spending money on, it really changes your perspective on if it's worth it or not, because it's not just this kind of open-ended, I don't know, just it puts a different twist on it.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up because I have a story that I can share that is along those same lines. And so another thing that happened in 2018, to help me out, help me manage my time, I invested in a nanny, and her name is Leticia. And there is a cost that comes with that, and the cost would be the equivalent of a six-figure car. And so I could own a six-figure car that I'm making payments on every single month, or I could have a live-in nanny who lives here for the same cost or the same price, but where the value is so much more. It's tremendous value because she is doing things that are just so important. She's cleaning every single day. She helps prepare meals. She helps watch the kid. All of those things that she does, not only does it give me more time to focus on the things that I'm good at, focus on high income activities, but it also brings so much more peace into the household. Now, can I flash that on social media? Well, what's easier to flash on social media, a nanny or, a Lamborghini or a six-figure car? And so learning how to make those decisions, that's a perfect example. Learning how to make that decision where I am going to invest in the thing that is going to bring me value today and over the next 5 years, instead of the thing that's going to make me poorer, which is the car. But what if I was making a $2,000 car payment every month on something that's going down in value, going down in utility, I'm paying interest on? There's no comparison. This week's sponsor is Adam Sells Denver. This episode is brought to you by Adam Sells Denver because in 2025, real estate isn't just about buying and selling, it's about winning. And I love saying that. If you're thinking about making a move this year, you need a strategy that works in today's market, not last year's. Here's what you need to know about Adam Sells Denver. Over 50 5-star Google reviews, because results matter. Tons of free resources at adamsellsdenver.com to help you navigate the 2025 market like a pro. If you haven't been to Adam Sells Denver, check it out. Incredible resources, handbooks, videos, testimonials, reviews. There is not a more impactful website in Colorado when it comes to real estate. Adam Sells Denver is also partnering with me to host a live masterclass webinar where we take you through everything from A to Z about the home buying process and how to succeed in 2025. To find out when the next webinar is happening, follow Adam Sells Denver on social or visit visit webinar.adamsellsdenver.com. All right, let's get back to the show.
All right. Thank you to our sponsor. So number 5, talk a little bit to us about just quit thinking about your dream car and start envisioning your dream life. This is a little bit of a kind of a carryover from this last one that we were talking about before the break.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an analogy. And the reason that I have it phrased like that is because our culture, our consumerism culture sells us when we're young on what we should value. So our culture tells our youth what we should value, what we should focus on. And one of those things is a nice car. And when you're letting others define your value, that's a tremendous problem. but it's a huge part of the problem. So the reason that this is so concerning is because not only are we letting others define value, but it's a tremendous financial trap. So instead of focusing on something that's going to make me poorer, instead of focusing on someone else's goal, I learned to take control and start envisioning my dream life. I just started asking myself, what does my dream life look like? Where do I live? Not just where do I live or what kind of car do I drive, but how do I live? What kind of relationships do I have with my kid? What kind of relationship do I have with Grace? How do I communicate? How do I lead my day to day? Am I someone that's in shape? And so I learned to envision what my dream life looked like, and that is what I started to pursue, not chase, pursue.
I think that's a great one. I think just really understanding that it's a choice and it's up to you to determine and define what your perfect life is. You don't have to live by these societal norms. What about number six? What's number six?
All right, number 6 is quit saying yes to things that disrupt my peace. Let me ask you, I mean, have you ever said yes to something that you want to do is well intended, and maybe you're helping someone out, a parent, friend, family member, customer, but you also know that it's not in your best interest and it's going to make your life more difficult and maybe even make you not as happy, or it's going to bring stress into your life. As an example, I have a personal story to share. Our neighbor's dog, who we love, his name is Zeus, and he's a standard poodle, and he needs to get rehomed. And we love this guy. We love this guy so much that every time he gets out, he doesn't run away. He runs to our house and comes up to the window and like says hi to our dogs. And he probably does this every single time. So we were considering bringing Zeus into our house and bringing him into our family. That would have been 4 dogs, two Labradoodles, and then one standard poodle. So we were doing this trial run that lasted a weekend, 2 nights, a couple weekends ago. And Zeus did great, very friendly, very calm. But my dogs, dude, they got my little wolf pack. No, even though they're friends with him, when he came in our house in like their territory, they were not happy. They were growling, they were arguing. It was a complete disruption for the entire weekend. And even though I love this guy, even though I want to help him, I personally am not going to be able to take that responsibility on my shoulders because it's going to disrupt the peace that I've worked so hard for in our household.
So my only question for another example of this about, quit saying yes to things that disrupt your peace. What about that friend that always is out there that asks you to help them move? Are you saying from now on, I can use this as my excuse? I'm sorry, I would love to help you move, but it's going to disrupt my peace.
Yeah, I am saying that. But how you phrase it is like this. I'm not going to be available, and I'm that same way. I quit. It's so funny you brought that up because that's it, isn't it? It's the friend that always asks you to help you move.
I really,
It is
I
like,
really
dude,
want
that
the
is
free
one of my
pizza,
least
but
favorite things.
the free pizza
Helping,
is a nice gesture, but not sure I'm going to be able to make it.
and so this is how I approach that now. I say, you know what? I personally am not available to help you move, but what I am willing to do is I'm willing to hire someone to take my place for you. And so I have literally done that. I've paid someone $50. I say, I got a friend moving, and I'm going to give you 50. Will you accept this job for $50 or whatever? Whatever it is, hour appropriate, and I will hire someone to take my place to go help them move.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, when Grace moved out of her apartment, she's my girlfriend and asked, like, will you help me move? And I was like, you know what? I would love to help you move, but I have this rule that I don't help people move. So because of that, I can't. But what I can do is I can hire someone to help you move. And that's what I did. I hired a family member to help her move.
Very generous of you. Oh, man. Okay. Jumping into number 7, quit caring what others think about you. And maybe that's why you just shared that story.
That's a big one, isn't it? Learning to not care about the opinions of others. I would say for me, like I really didn't get there until a couple years ago. I'd say like 38, 39, 40, where you truly just don't care. I see my kids now that they're in high school kind of going through that. They're so cautious with everything they say. And if I'm around, they're always like, don't embarrass us. Don't say anything stupid. And then, like, yesterday at track practice, I show up wearing these with tights on and shorts over the tights and just look completely ridiculous because I don't care anymore. And when you can get to a spot where you don't care, like, wow, talk about powerful.
Look at the brand Crocs and how multi-billion-dollar industry, all based off this exact principle. You just don't
Oh
care
my
what people
gosh.
think for Crocs.
And I told my kids that. I was like, I don't care what people think, but I see you wearing those effing Crocs. Like that's that's terrible. They are so ugly. But one thing, this is a lesson that I learned kind of going through this process is that people are going to be critical of you no matter what. And I think a lot of times we forget that. If you fail or you lose, people are going to be critical of you. But what about if you win? People are going to be critical of you as well, even if you win. And I share that lesson with my kids. It doesn't matter what you do, the critics are always going to be there. So just don't listen to them. There was a recent study done by the University of Southern California, and it found that 90% of people's opinions that they criticize you on are based on their own insecurities, not yours. So when someone is being critical of you for losing or failing, well, it's an insecurity that they have. But when they're also being critical of you for winning or doing a good job or questioning, how did you do that? You must have done something unethical, or what corners did you cut? They're questioning their own insecurities.
Yeah, I think that is the biggest thing to realize to help get over that hump of not caring anymore. So I think it's something maybe about hitting your 40s because I think I'm about the same timeline as you on that one. So maybe it's one of the gifts of hitting, going over the hill, so to speak.
Yeah, it's funny because I've read a lot of just kind of literature recently how life doesn't really start until 40. And even though you do get older and you look different at 40 than when you were 20 and when you were 18, for me, I feel like life's getting better and better. I am enjoying life more and more, and I feel more confident. I feel more blessed. And so it's like these years really are just getting better every year, how I feel.
Give me a Kleenex.
Ooh, doggy.
All right, we'll close this out with number 8. What's number 8?
All right, number 8, quit relying on a salary and look for performance-based work. This is a tough one for a lot of people, and I was in this boat. And the reason for this is because we are sold a certain philosophy when it comes to our education system and our culture. Go to school, get good grades so you can get a good job and live the standard American life and have security. The reason, I was at Wells Fargo. I started at Wells Fargo back in 2010. And in 2014, despite being a top performer at Wells Fargo, I was laid off, and I was laid off with very little notice. And that's when I realized that, my results really don't matter from their perspective. I'm literally just an expense line item. And it's like, you know what? We need to get rid of expense line items 1,352 through 1,160. We need to get rid of those. Let's just go ahead and cut those out of the budget. Don't care about results. And I think most people feel that same way, that when you're on a salary because your income is predictable, it's safe and it's secure. Here's the thing, though, it's not. When there are layoffs, when there are economic contractions, if there's a recession in the economy, what jobs are the ones that are first eliminated? It's the people that are on fixed income or salaries. And when you learn how to get paid off of your performance, and also the thing about a salary is that I was great at my job at Wells Fargo. I was underpaid though, because I was doing such an exceptional job. I was getting paid the same as the person next to me who was average at their job, and I was getting paid the same to the person next to them who was bad at their job. So when you have performance-based work, there's no limit on how much you can get paid, how much you can get compensated. So the more skilled that you are, the more value that you can bring to the marketplace and to your customers, the more you will get compensated. And so learning that in 2018, going from that salary to that role that was 100% commission, I had set some goals for myself that year. And, kind of going back to last week's episode about the reticular activating system and kind of where I was at with my mindset, my mind frame, I could only envision myself like I was like, you know what? if I made this much money, I would like that seems like all the money in the world. Like, and I ended up blowing like way past that. Like, but I wasn't capable of even believing that at the time. And so here we are 7 years later. Now it's not even as much about income. Is it when you're performance based, you get an opportunity every single day to invest in yourself, develop your skills, grow as a professional, grow as a leader. And you have to. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to keep up. And you don't have that same urgency and incentive if you're on a salary working for someone else. I know some people are on a salary, and that I was too, but start a side hustle. Start looking for ways that you can develop yourself, increase your skills. Not only will you be able to earn more, but you'll be more confident with who you are. You'll get to develop yourself in ways that you hadn't otherwise.
And if you're at a salary type position and you really are that top performer and you feel like you're underpaid, going to whoever's your boss, whoever's in charge of that, being able to kind of give them an ultimatum, like either give me more of a performance based format of pay or I'm going to walk, or, at least having that ability to even get creative within salaried positions. And I love though your point about just a side hustle, just really leveraging the other, you know, 16 hours a day outside of the 8 hours you're working at your primary job.
Yeah, I mean, because it can be very intimidating. And for me, that was one of the most difficult decisions that I made. And my wife at the time kind of just pushed me off the salary edge, so to speak. And she was like, dude, she was like, you have to go try this because, there is so much opportunity. And so I'm always very appreciative of her really pushing me to do that because I don't know that otherwise I would have done it.
Well, all right,
Sometimes
guys.
we all need a little push, man. We need a little push from a friend, a family member, or a podcast.
Just got to push it, baby.
That's right.
All right, guys. Well, hopefully you got a little value out of these 8 really, really, I think, kind of diverse, list of lessons that Ben learned. I think all of these had some cool little takeaways. I know I got some out of it. But again, we talked about those 8 things that Ben quit that completely changed his life. So if you guys are serious about creating freedom financially, mentally, and physically, start removing the things that are holding you guys back. If this episode gave you guys value at all, please share it with a friend, subscribe, leave us a review. That really helps. And if you're serious about learning how to dominate in 2025, head over to adamsoulsnever.com, sign up for our new free live webinar. It's going to be about every other week right now, and it's packed with game-changing insights you guys will not hear anywhere else. You guys can find the next live webinar at webinar.adamsoulsdenver.com. And until next week, hope you guys have a good, productive next 7 days until we see you next time. Get after it.
Love you guys. Hope to see you on the webinar. We did our first one a couple weeks ago, and wow, I'm just so excited. We talk strategies, we take questions. We are there to serve you. So stop by, join us. We'd love to see you and see how we can help you.
See you guys.